Would you risk everything to save a life that everyone else ignores? Mark never thought his evening walk would end with a decision that split his family and his conscience in half. The sun had just started melting behind the row of tired suburban houses when Mark, 48, set out for his usual walk. The world felt heavy that week. Bills overdue, a daughter who hadn't called in months, and a marriage that now ran on autopilot, like his old dishwasher, reliable but making strange noises. He walked to clear his head, to remember that life wasn't just endless chores and mild disappointments. He almost missed the sound. A yelp so raw it could tear paint off a wall. Mark stopped. Listen. Another whimper, sharper now, desperate, coming from the yard next door. The O'Reilly's place. Mark's stomach turned. That house had a reputation. Kids said the old man drank and yelled. That dogs came and went, none of them lasting long. Mark's hand hovered at the fence. He could just keep walking. The responsible thing, maybe. He had dinner waiting, a wife with something to discuss, and 1,000 other reasons not to get involved. But the cry came again, a sound that demanded action from someone, anyone. Mark's shoes found a gap in the fence. He peered inside. What he saw made his breath catch. A muddy golden retriever, ribs sticking out like bent coat hangers, chained to a rusted post, shaking so hard the collar rattled. A shape loomed behind the kitchen window. Mr. O'Reilly, red-faced, clutching a beer, watching Mark like he already knew trouble had come to his door. "Hey!" Mark called out, his voice cracking. "This is cruelty. Let the dog go." The old man sneered. "Mind your own business, Mark. You got enough of your own mess." Something inside Mark snapped. He vaulted the fence, stupid, impulsive, exactly what his wife said he never did. But tonight he couldn't walk away. His hands fumbled with the chain. The retriever, wild-eyed, shrank from him but didn't bite. "Let her go, Mark. Or I call the cops and say you're trespassing." Mark didn't flinch. He looked the man in the eye, felt a tremor in his own legs. "Call them. Tell them why this dog looks like this." His fingers finally freed the clasp. The dog bolted behind him, whimpering, pressing close as if she'd been waiting her whole life for this chance. That's when Mark felt the blow. A flash of pain at the back of his head. Then the world spun sideways. Who pays the price when you do the right thing? Mark thought saving the dog would bring relief. He didn't expect it to unravel everything he believed about his own home. He came to on the sidewalk, the world painted in smears of red and yellow from the streetlights. The dog, a tangle of fur and panic, licked his face. Voices, sharp and accusatory, hovered above. "You attacked my dad." That was Kevin O'Reilly, the local golden boy, home from college and twice Mark's size. The police arrived before Mark could sit up. Questions flew at him. "Did you jump the fence? Why didn't you call animal control? Is this your dog?" Mark's hand shook as he tried to explain. "She would have died, look at her." But the officers were cool and practiced. "That's for the courts, sir." Mark felt something break inside him. He'd never been arrested. Never even had a parking ticket. Now he was a headline waiting to happen. Middle-aged neighbor breaks in, attacks elderly man. At home, Ellen met him at the door, arms folded, jaw set. "You couldn't leave it alone?" "She was suffering," he whispered. "So are we. Did you think of us, Mark? Or is this about you feeling like a hero?" That stung. Mark had always believed in quiet kindness. Don't draw attention, do what you can. Tonight that wasn't enough. The next day gossip bloomed. The O'Reillys painted Mark as a madman. At the grocery, old friends looked through him. His boss called. Maybe take a few days off. Let it blow over. Even at home the tension thickened. His daughter Lauren sent a text. "Dad, what's going on? I'm getting weird messages online." Mark looked at the dog, now hiding under the kitchen table, too scared to eat. He wondered if he'd ruined everything for the sake of a creature that wouldn't even meet his eyes. How far would you go to defend a choice everyone hates? Mark's act of courage left him isolated. But when old wounds reopen at home, even the dog's trust becomes a question mark. The kitchen was cold, though the dog, whom Lauren named Daisy after a flower she barely remembered from childhood, slept in a makeshift bed by the fridge. Mark sat at the table, a mug of coffee trembling in his hands. Outside, a dull rain glazed the windows, making the house seem smaller, less forgiving. Ellen's silence was its own language. She wiped the counters with more force than needed, glancing at Daisy as if the dog were a ticking bomb. "We can't keep her," she said finally, voice brittle. "The police want statements." Animal control left a card. "I don't want our lives tangled with someone else's mess." Mark set his cup down, hands splaying on the old wood. "It's not someone else's mess, Ellen. I made it ours. I'd do it again." She laughed, a sound stripped of humor. "Of course you would. You've always needed to be the one to fix what isn't yours to fix. Just like your brother. Remember the last time you stepped in and almost lost your job?" He flinched. That memory, the year he called out fraud at work and nearly got fired, still burned. He'd been the only one willing to speak up. It had cost him friends, almost his pension, and a chunk of Ellen's trust. The doorbell cut the tension. Mark stood, half hoping it was Lauren, home early, her smile a salve for all the wounds. Instead, it was Kevin O'Reilly, his face set in stony fury, and a police officer behind him. "We need to talk, Mr. Robbins." The officer's tone was firm but not cruel. Mark ushered them in. Daisy whimpered, shrinking back, but didn't bark. Kevin glared at the dog. "My father's arm is in a sling. He says you shoved him." "That's not what happened," Mark replied, heat in his voice. "Sir, we're here to take a statement and check on the animal's welfare," the officer interrupted. Ellen stood beside Mark, not touching him but close enough to signal whose side she was on for now. The officer knelt, coaxing Daisy from her hiding spot. He frowned at the scars along her back, the wounds already crusting over. "I'll need to file a report," he said quietly. "But I'm not blind. This dog's been through hell. We'll need to quarantine her, just until the investigation's closed." Mark's throat closed. "She won't make it in a shelter. Can't you see what's happened?" But the law had its rhythm, cold and measured. Daisy was led away in a carrier, her eyes meeting Mark's once, full of a silent plea and something like forgiveness. As the door shut, Ellen slumped against the wall, tears finally coming. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It's just, I'm so tired, Mark. A feeling like everything we build is always one step from falling apart." Mark didn't answer. For the first time, he wondered if he was rescuing Daisy to save himself. From regret, from a marriage on life support, from a life that felt small and unfinished. That night, the house was unbearably quiet. Mark lay awake, replaying every choice, every harsh word, every silent disappointment. He didn't notice Ellen slip out of bed. But when he heard her voice, muffled, desperate, on the phone downstairs, he realized he wasn't the only one with secrets. What if the real betrayal isn't from your enemies, but from the person you sleep beside every night? Mark thought he was losing his mind over a dog, but Ellen's secret was about to turn his world upside down. Mark lay in bed, the weight of the past days pressing into his chest like a stone. He should have gotten up when Ellen's footsteps padded quietly down the stairs, but exhaustion and dread pinned him in place. The clock ticked past 3 before he heard her voice. A low whisper, strained and broken, leaking through the thin floorboards. He slipped from under the covers, heart pounding in his ears. The kitchen light glowed under the door, and beyond it, Ellen's silhouette was hunched over the phone. "No, I can't. He'll break if he finds out, I swear." A pause. "Yes, I have the money. It's not about the money anymore, it's about Mark. He's not himself." Another silence. The kind of silence that's worse than shouting. Mark's hands curled into fists. He wanted to burst in to demand answers, but the fear of confirming what he already sensed kept him frozen. He caught fragments. All these years. I never told him. The words fell into his chest like ice. He crept back upstairs, mind churning. Betrayal, he thought bitterly, isn't always about affairs or stolen cash. Sometimes it's the little lies, the ones that fester so long you forget who you were trying to protect in the first place. Morning came, gray and unfriendly. Mark waited in the kitchen, staring at his untouched toast. Ellen joined him, her face drawn, eyes puffy but resolute. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice too gentle, too careful. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. She looked at her hands, picking at invisible threads. "You think I'm angry about Daisy?" "I am, but not for the reasons you think." Mark braced himself. "I know I'm impulsive," he said, "but I couldn't watch her suffer. I needed to do something right for once." Ellen's eyes flicked up. For a moment she almost smiled. "You think you're the only one trying to do the right thing?" "Mark, I've been holding something for years. Something I should have told you. Should have told Lauren, but I was scared it would break us." He felt the floor tilt beneath him. "What is it?" She took a breath so deep it rattled. "The house, my mother left it to me, not us. There's debt, Mark. A lot of it. More than you know. I've been trying to pay it off behind your back. That's why Lauren's college fund disappeared. Why I'm always working late. The calls, the stress. It's not your fault. But I didn't want you to feel like you'd failed us. I just wanted to handle it myself." Mark stared at her, stunned. "All this time." Tears slipped down Ellen's cheeks. "I'm sorry. I was so afraid you'd leave. Or that you'd hate me. You've always been the hero, Mark, always the one who steps in. I thought if I could fix it myself, maybe I'd finally be enough for you." The words hit harder than any accusation. Mark saw not just the betrayal but the fear that drove it. He remembered the helplessness in Daisy's eyes, the way she pressed close, terrified but trusting. Wasn't Ellen the same? Wounded, hiding, desperate for rescue? A quiet realization crept over him. He wasn't the only one drowning. Before he could reply, the phone rang. Mark answered, voice hoarse. "Mr. Robbins? This is Officer Kane. There's been a development with Daisy. You need to come to the shelter. Now." Mark hung up, numb and electric at once. He turned to Ellen. "We'll talk more when I get back. But I want you to know, whatever you're carrying, you're not alone." For the first time in days, Ellen didn't look away. Mark drove through rain-slicked streets, each turn bringing more questions than answers. At the shelter, Officer Kane met him at the door, face grave. "We found something you need to see," the officer said. Daisy was there, frightened, trembling, but alive. But what Mark saw next made him question everything he thought he knew. Not just about his neighbors or even his own wife, but about the cost of trying to save what's broken. What if saving someone else is the only way to save yourself? Mark was sure he knew what broken looked like, until the truth at the shelter forced him to face his own demons. The shelter buzzed with a nervous energy, as if every abandoned animal could sense a coming storm. Mark stood beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, the hum echoing his own heartbeat. Daisy cowered in a crate at the far end of the room, tail tucked, eyes wide with questions she'd never ask. Officer Kane's jaw was clenched. "Mr. Robbins, you need to see this," he said, leading Mark to a back office. On the desk, a battered file, Daisy's records. But beside it lay a small, leather-bound notebook. "We found this under the old O'Reilly porch. Animal control thinks it belonged to Mrs. O'Reilly before she died." Mark thumbed through the yellowed pages. Dates. Notes. A child's shaky handwriting. "Mama says Daisy is mine. She keeps her safe from Dad. Dad yells a lot. Daisy hides under my bed. Please don't take Daisy away." His throat tightened. These were Lauren's words from when she was little. But the address, O'Reilly's house, how? Kane watched him, cautious. There's more. The O'Reillys aren't who they say. Mr. O'Reilly was never Daisy's legal owner. There's a history of complaints, neglect, threats, violence. We think Daisy belonged to a little girl, but she disappeared. The records are fuzzy. The case was closed, everyone moved on. No one looked for the dog or the girl. Until now. Mark felt his world tilt. You're saying Daisy's from that case? But how does Lauren? Kane shook his head. That's not all. The debts your wife hid. The O'Reillys' threats? We ran the records. Someone's been using your family's name. Fraud, property liens, maybe more. Ellen tried to shield you. She's not the only one hiding scars. Mark reeled, his sense of self, father, husband, neighbor crumbling. The lines between victim and rescuer blurred. He'd spent his life fighting other people's fires, patching up strangers' wounds, never pausing to notice the ones bleeding out in his own home. He walked to Daisy's crate, crouched down. She shrank at first, then, as if some old memory flickered, let him stroke her trembling head. You remember us, don't you? Mark whispered. You kept my daughter safe. Maybe that's why I couldn't let you go. Daisy licked his fingers, her tail twitching. A shy, battered hope. Mr. Robbins, Kane said gently, we're reopening the case. But it's going to get ugly. Your family might be in danger. Are you ready for that? Mark looked at Daisy, then out the window into the hard, honest morning light. For the first time, he didn't flinch. We're not running anymore. He took Daisy home, paperwork in hand, heart pounding with the new clarity. Ellen stood in the doorway, arms wrapped tight around herself. Mark handed her the notebook, his voice steady. I know about the debts. About Lauren's childhood. I know you tried to carry it alone. But I'm here now. For all of us. She read, her hands shaking, tears spilling. Mark pulled her close. Whatever happens next, we do it together. That evening, Mark sat with Ellen and Lauren, the three of them close, Daisy curled between their feet. For the first time in years, the silence was gentle, not jagged. They waited for the storm. But this time they would face it as a family. What do you do when the danger finally knocks on your door? Mark thought the worst was behind them, but some debts demand to be paid in person. Night pressed against the windows, thick and relentless. Mark sat at the kitchen table, Daisy dozing at his feet, when headlights swept across the wall. Ellen appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. They're back. The car idled at the curb, engine growling like something feral. Mark saw the shape of Mr. O'Reilly behind the wheel, face a shadow behind rain-streaked glass. Kevin stepped out first, fists clenched, body radiating the same rage Mark had felt in himself just days ago. Mark opened the door before they could ring. He kept his voice even. You have no right to be here. The police know everything. Mr. O'Reilly staggered up the walk, swaying slightly, eyes bright with something manic. You think you can take my property, you sanctimonious. Daisy barked, a sharp warning, pressing her body between Mark and the men. Kevin's face wavered, unsure. Let's go, Dad. It's over. The cops. But Mr. O'Reilly was already shouting, spittle flying. She was never yours. You think you're a hero, Robbins? You ruin everything. Ellen stepped beside Mark, chin high, voice trembling but strong. You abused that dog. You hurt your family. You're not welcome here. The neighbors' lights flickered on. One by one, windows filled with silent witnesses. Mark felt a surge of something fierce, community maybe, or the simple strength of not being alone anymore. Officer Kane's cruiser pulled up, blue lights flashing. He stepped out, calm but firm. Gentlemen, it's time to go. Mr. O'Reilly, you're wanted for questioning in several cases. Property fraud, animal abuse, harassment. Mark watched as the officers led the O'Reillys away. The street, so often indifferent, felt like it was finally on his side. Inside, Lauren hugged her father. Daisy pressed against his leg, shaking but refusing to hide. Later, Mark sat with Ellen at the kitchen table, the quiet no longer suffocating. He traced the scar on Daisy's ear, the soft place where fur wouldn't grow back. So much of life, he said, is just surviving the damage. I thought saving Daisy was about her, but I think I needed it too. Ellen squeezed his hand. Maybe we all did. Lauren poured tea, her voice softer than he remembered. I used to dream Daisy would come back for me. She did. And so did you, Dad. The house, battered but standing, felt warmer than it had in years. What began as one impulsive act of compassion ripped open every hidden wound in Mark's family. But it also set them free. From secrets, from shame, from the kind of loneliness that seeps into your bones. Daisy at last fell asleep in Mark's lap, home for good. And as the rain faded and dawn crept in, Mark understood. Sometimes saving someone else is how you save yourself.